let's bring in Sportsnet's Arash Madani. Now we got more time than normal to talk with our dude who's just back from the Grey Cup, the Coupe de Grey. But if I may, Arash, can I jump in and start with the NBA and your thoughts on the in-season tournament? Looks like it's the first year that they're doing it. Are you a thumbs up or thumbs down on this?
I'm a shrug my shoulders kind of guy on this whole thing, Rod. I get why they're doing it, trying to get attention for themselves in November, which is a dead time in the NBA season. I always used to say, didn't really follow the NBA until Christmas Day. Now it's just become, with the expansion of the NFL playoffs, with the college football playoff, I don't really follow the NBA until after the Super Bowl. So my take on the whole thing is, I don't know how many people actually know what the in-season tournament is.
I'm glad that it's not just me. I've had to do a lot of studying, and the more I've read, the less I'm interested in it, to be honest. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. Raptors at Orlando tonight, though, by the way. Now, I don't know where you want to go. My inkling's to ask you about the 110th Grey Cup, the thrilling finish. You had wall-to-wall coverage, as you always do. Were you having as much fun as it seemed in the Hammer?
Yeah, it was solid. And it was solid from a content standpoint because there was a lot to chew on. I find the Marc-Antoine Dequoy story so awesome. It has nothing to do with his post-game rant, even though that was spectacular. Because, Roddy, you and I are of a certain vintage where we remember when Matthew Prue arrived on the scene. And Matthew Prue was one of the first great French-Canadian safeties. And then he gave way to Etienne Boulay, and together they won a couple of championships. And Marc-Olivier Brouillette was more of a strong side linebacker than a safety. But Dequoy grew up watching those two dudes and idolizing those two guys. And so on our Friday story was about kind of one generation passing into the next and how they have similarities and instincts and the rest. And then, suddenly it becomes fitting on walkthrough day on Saturday. He's rocking a T-shirt with Prue and Boulay on it. So that kind of symmetry, that was great. And I just thought Zach was going to be better in the Grey Cup. I thought he was finally going to put together a postseason game, and just didn't again.
Yeah. Well, look, so let's dissect that a little bit. Just on M.O. Marco Brouillette. You forgot to mention that he's a vegan. And I'll never forget on a road trip, we had him in Sask for a brief time. So as they're handing out trays of chicken or beef, and he got his vegan meal, obviously you know him, he looked around and said, "Enjoy it, you savages." He's just a great guy. I don't know if he's still doing color for the Alouettes radio or not, but if he's not, he should be. What about, where does this rate on Grey Cup upsets of all time out of the 110 that have been played?
I don't know. I mean, I thought last year's was just as much of an upset, to be quite honest with you. Look, I think if we're being real here, we have to just acknowledge what the reality is. Winnipeg blew it. Winnipeg absolutely blew it. And it is still stunning and staggering to me how this whole thing with them shook down. Because the Bombers didn't play a particularly strong second half. They get outscored 21-7. But they were the better team, and they got outcoached, they got outplayed, they got out-schemed, they got outclassed. I thought Collaros just became so gun-shy after that interception in the end zone when he was trying to find Kenny Lawler, and then it was almost like they ignored Kenny Lawler, who was the best receiver on the field, not named Austin Mack. And still amidst all that, Roddy, they had 2nd and 18. All they had to do was make a play or two, and what happens? Cody Fajardo improvising to set up 3rd and manageable. A 13-yard rush when nothing was really there. And then the pass down the sideline, then ultimately finding Philpott in the end zone. That is 2 straight absolute meltdowns by the Blue Bombers. And they need to do a deep dive into the why. And once they start digging into the why, there's got to be a lot of soul searching and people looking in the mirror saying, we got to change the way we do things around here. Because only dressing 6 defensive backs was not smart. Brandon Alexander should not be playing halfback. The decision to go with Adam Bighill, as courageous as it was, that's a waste of a roster spot, in that place. And you have to finish seasons like this. And the Blue Bombers did.
From the audience. By the way, I apologize. Lawn guys coming around. Sometimes it's Saturday night, sometimes it's Tuesday afternoon, sometimes it's Friday morning, whatever. He's the Forrest Gump of lawn maintenance. You never know what you're going to get. Yeah. Sandy Nelson says, way to go, Fajardo. Loved him in Sask, but didn't think he had an offensive coordinator. Moz. Clearly, Sandy was wrong. Let's just spend a minute on this. Somebody wrote in yesterday as a Rider fan and said, can we move on this narrative? And I'm like, yeah, no, not ready to move on. The whole Fajardo thing and the way it ended and the way it made Sask look, I was just a little shocked. I'm like, people now, even Rider fans, you didn't realize this team was in serious trouble and direction until Cody Fajardo won a Grey Cup with somebody else? What? We should spend a minute on that. Even Jim Hobson said culture is a big problem with that Saskatchewan football team right now.
And it's Fajardo for sure, and it's also Jason Moss. Like, think about the scenario Jason Moss inherited. They didn't have an owner. They didn't have money to spend in free agency. Trevor Harris, Eugene Lewis, they went out the door. And Moss got buy-in by a group of, well, Fajardo called them this, and he called them the misfits. He said it's a bunch of guys, free agents, cast-offs. We've all kind of come together. Nobody else wanted us, and we all bought into this whole deal. And, Roddy, the more I'm just kind of watching and following this, I just don't understand how status quo continues to go in Regina, in Saskatchewan. I mean, how many more thousands of empty seats do there have to be? How many more losing seasons does that fan base have to endure before people on the board kind of understand what is happening here? It's right in front of your face, literally, at so many different turns. That said, I was among the people who didn't think Cody Fajardo had it. To me, I look at the East Final and it's the 9 turnovers, and you come into this Grey Cup game, and I thought that Winnipeg's pass rush would do something. They did next to nothing. But when it really mattered, Roddy, as our friend John Gibbons would say, when it was nut-cutting time, Cody Fajardo did it. Under 2 minutes to go, 83 yards needed. I mentioned it. 2nd and 18, 3rd and 5, the throw to Philpott. That's the stuff of legend. That's what makes you a champion. And Fajardo played his absolute best when the stakes were the absolute highest. And so now Cody Fajardo, whether you believe it or not, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, is a franchise quarterback. He's a championship quarterback. His legacy has changed because when it was all on the line, he performed, he delivered, he did it. And they're Grey Cup champs.
Well, you're good friends with Eddie Steele. Dude, I could talk about this for hours. We have viewers that want to talk about your shirt, so I'll try to move on. But you got a lot of respect for Eddie Steele, and so do I. There's a lot of guys that were not Fajardo believers. Eddie had no reason to not. He wasn't biased. He's won a Grey Cup. Eddie knows. He's like, this guy's not.
Watch what you watch, right? You watch what you watch. You're saying to yourself, yeah,
right, yeah. As a quarterback, the doubters fuel you. And I guess that would be a good segue to Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. And Troy in Toronto writes in, who, by the way, is a Packers fan, and says, Arash, you made me laugh so loud with that shirt. My employees wondered what the heck is going on in my office. So good. Hilarious. Viking fan to the bone. Explain, please.
After 5.5 years, Roddy, I feel like I've gotten a reprieve from the governor. I have escaped Shawshank. I get fresh air. I get sunshine. I get my team back. We have a quarterback who can run around, a quarterback who can improvise, somebody who can make plays. Nothing has to be on schedule. I don't know if you know this, if the audience knows, Joshua Dobbs was a 4.0 GPA at the University of Tennessee in the SEC as an aeronautical engineering major. He interned at NASA. NASA actually sent out a tweet congratulating him after the Falcons win, calling him the Pastronaut. I am all in on Josh Dobbs. Yes, he looks in the mirror and look at the reflection. It's so fun. The guy runs around. He does his thing. He's the Pastronaut. He's got dudes believing. This close to beating Denver on Sunday night. Not for a Madison fumble and the pick and what nearly was interception in the end zone on a Cortland Sutton game-winning touchdown. It's been so fun. It's been so fun to get your team back and to watch exciting offense. And Josh Dobbs has been a blast.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm just calling up the National Football League now in that NFC North, the black and blue division, as some call it. I mean,
it's Honolulu Blue now. That's what the division is. It's Detroit Lions Honolulu Blue.
And what a story that is. What a story. Do you hate, I know you hate Green Bay. Do you hate the Lions?
Oh, no. You don't hate the Lions. You can't hate the Lions. Like, you can't hate UNICEF, you know? It's and growing up in Nova Scotia, our CBS affiliate was Detroit for the longest time, and our NBC affiliate came from New England. So I was just used to watching dreadful football, except for Barry Sanders, and you just appreciated that. And their story is awesome, and the way they're building it is so good through the draft. I mean, they're just hitting on their picks. And Dan Campbell's great TV. He's great theater. And it's hard not to kind of root for him. You know, Aiden Hutchinson's an absolute beast.
Yeah.
They're cardiac kids too, Roddy. Like, they win games in wild fashion. So I can't wait for Thursday. And I can't wait for them to beat the Packers, because it's always great when the Packers lose.
Oh, U.S. Thanksgiving would be a wonderful time for you to come visit. It's like you and I, when we get together, we can spend a lot of time chatting about things, Arash. And you said, was it WDIV was your affiliate that you watched out there in Detroit?
That was
or
one
from
of
Detroit?
Them. Yeah, WDK was the main Detroit one that we had for the longest time.
But Bernie Smolovich, Weekend at Bernie's.
Yes.
Carmen Harlan.
There we go.
Yeah, all of them. Well, the power of the media. Like, people don't understand. You understand. I understand. In my little town, grade 9 social class, Mr. McGarry, our teacher, said, show of hands how many know the mayor of Detroit. In Milestone, Saskatchewan, everybody said, Coleman Young. Because we all watched the news after school on WDIV. He said, how many of you know the mayor of Regina? Not even half the arms went up. 30 miles away. The power, I'll never forget that experiment, man. Long live Coleman Young and Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah.
Anything else, sir?
It's good to see you, man. No, everything's good. We missed you a Grey Cup this year. I tell you, that finish was really good. That was really good. But our friends in Winnipeg, man, they got some figuring things out to do, and you can't point at one thing. There's so much there in 4 quarters of football that I think that game revealed, and they got to sort it out, because if they don't, it's going to be the same thing all over again.
Sure, but they're doing it from a position of strength. 4 straight Grey Cup appearances. I'd rather be in their shoes than a lot of others across the CFL.
Yeah, except not yesterday and not today. Because here's the thing, Roddy. The other thing that we have to remember is their championship window closing. Like, what are the futures of Big Hill and Bryant and Hardrick, Neufeld,
Willie?
Sure, Brandon Alexander. Like, there's a lot of guys who've been there a long time, and I'm just stunned about Caleros. Like, this is now 9 postseason games. You can look at his last 9 postseason games, the sample size. It's 6 touchdowns and 8 picks. It's baffling. It is absolutely baffling what happens to him in November. So there's a lot to look at here.
Absolutely. All right. Happy U.S. Thanksgiving, sir. Keep in touch.
Great to see you, bud.
All right. Same. The great Arash Madani.